answered Marvin. But so what I want to do about today,
so I don't know how many of you have used mobile Firefox yet, but I'm just going to quickly go through some of how it works, and now that you know some of the whys. So, so when you open the mobile Firefox, you see a screen like here on the left. You see a title bar with an identifier of the page. Interestingly, not a URL. That's one of the decisions that we made to try to be a little bit more useful with our limited screen space, and a couple of controls. As you start to use the page, even in that limited amount of Chrome browser UI pans off the top. This is a pretty popular pattern now, both in web browsers and in mobile websites. I like it because it means that rather than having to press a button to go into some sort of full screen mode, just by using the web page, the browser UI goes away. So, okay, not too surprising there. What is a little more surprising is where we decided to put the rest of our browser UI. Again, this is partly about wanting to keep all of the UI off screen, to really dedicate screen real estate to web content. But also, again, what I was talking about in terms of really trying to take advantage of the physicality of a touch screen. So, because it's the easiest thing in the world on a screen, just to reach out, grab the page, and move it around physically, we decided to try to lay out our controls in physical space. So here, when you drag the page to the left, to the right, to see more on the left, you can drag past the edge of the web page and see some browser controls. In this case, our list of open tabs. And similarly, we put some browser controls like bookmarking, back and forward, and access to some browser tools off to the right. We're taking advantage here of the fact that most web pages are much longer than they are wide. So rather than having to pan all the way to the top or to the bottom to get at controls, it's easier to pan just from side to side to get at some additional stuff. And I think this is a pattern that is as useful in web design as it would be in browser design. While we're looking at this page, I'll just point out, so the things that you can get at through these browser tools include some of these things that we were talking about, personalization and customization as being important. A big part of the way that we surface that in Firefox is through our add-ons. So you can see here that we made an add-ons list, an add-ons manager, very primary. Of all the things we decided to cut, this is one of the major things that we left in. So here you can see that I have some add-ons installed, including one that I think is really cool, Personas, which lets you easily skin the browser. So this is in some ways using customization through add-ons to enable further customizations. I think we're going to build this into the browser in an upcoming release, but it lets you skin the browser as much as you would on your desktop. So here's one, my current favorite, called LolFace. The personas manifest themselves differently because we have so much less browser UI on mobile, but a lot of them still work surprisingly well, and there's a ton of them designed for the desktop, but that you can use in mobile Firefox as well. And I'm sure we'll see many designed specifically for mobile over the coming months. So back to the browser proper. So I talked about physicality, lay things out in space, try to get things off of the screen to really focus on our core function, which is showing web pages. And so that would be different for your websites and web apps, right? You would have a different core function to think about. But I want to talk a little bit about trying to eliminate as much typing as possible. So when you want to go somewhere in mobile Firefox, you tap on the title bar, and at that point you can see a URL in case you happen to want to edit it. But right away we show you a list. So this is related to something that we do in desktop Firefox, where when you start to type, we show you a bunch of suggestions. We call that our awesome bar. The way we do it on mobile is that before you've started to type, we mine that same algorithm. It's based on what you do often and what you've done recently, a combination of those two things, to try to give you a list of the things that the browser thinks are probably what you're looking for. And it turns out this is actually a pretty good list. I mean, again, this is a pattern we see across a lot of web browsers through things like Quick Dial. I think the Firefox one is a little smarter in that it makes use of, it's a more nuanced way of figuring out what it is you probably want. So anyway, before you've even typed at all, we show you a list of things you do most often or have been doing recently. And so hopefully without any typing, you can just see or pan to the thing that you want. Now, if it's not there, you can start typing, and very quickly the suggestions get better based on what you've been typing. So in this case, at the furthest left, even probably typing W or WO would have brought up, this wiki page about wombats. If what you want isn't something you've never looked at for before, so isn't in this list, and so we can't do any matching, we bring up a list of different search engines. You can add to these the way you can in desktop Firefox. And this really helps get into that case I was talking about where we want to allow the quick lookup scenario. So say I realize that suddenly I desperately do want to know what a capybara is. Maybe it's come up it's a bit of trivia or who knows. Rather than having to navigate to Google, find a search field, tap on it, type in it, I can just type here and immediately send that search to Twitter or to Wikipedia or to Amazon. So I can really focus in quickly on getting an answer to my quick question as quickly as I can. We also try to do things for eliminating typing in other places. So a helpful one here is by offering suggestions for form fields. One thing I didn't mention actually that I should have is that these suggestions are useful enough on their own, but backed by Firefox Sync. So the ability to synchronize all of your data across your different browsers, instances of Firefox, makes this really powerful because suddenly, Firefox on your mobile device knows you as well as Firefox on your desktop does. You don't have to wear it in all over again. And so that applies here to form fields as well. Mobile Firefox through synchronization, knows what to suggest based on what you've done on the desktop. We also, through synchronization, let you see what you're doing elsewhere on the web. So in this case, I started searching for a particular web page about a future of user experience session at Web 2.0 Expo in San Francisco. And this little icon here on the right tells me that, wait a minute, I have this tab open on another computer right now, which in this case helps me know that this is in fact the one I was looking for because I know that the page I'm looking for I had open on my desktop computer. And if I don't want to do this in the context of a search, I can just tap this desktop tab to see here are things I have currently. Here's everything I have open on my desktop computer right now. Which again helps you find things. It's this idea of bringing together your mobile and your desktop usage into one place, which I think is another really interesting way to think about designing for mobile, right? How do you bridge mobile and desktop? So that's the quick tour of how we applied some of these things in mobile Firefox. To sort of wrap up, I just wanted to talk very quickly about mobile is starting to mean a lot more than just phones, right? You could think about mobile in many ways as being anything where a person is really moving around a lot, right? Where they're not just at a desktop computer, which sort of bridges this whole spectrum of phone to laptop.